Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar. You weren't ready again.
No.
I am Jakey Bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by my co-host Drew. Drew, man, NBA, everything's changed. Everything is different now. 6 hours after the free agency period, quote-unquote, opened,
Right.
Everything is different. The meta is all gone. Golden State may not be the best team in the NBA anymore.
Can you really say that?
I don't know. Everything's different. That's all I know.
It is all different, but I don't know if you can sit there and say that fully and believe it. I guess you could say it all you want, but the question is, do you believe it or not? I mean, they still got Klay Thompson. They still got Seth Curry. And then you sit there and you throw in D'Angelo. I mean, does that team completely do a whole remake? Because Seth's no longer number one. He got to take number two, right?
What's going on, Brian? Good to see you. And the rumor is they're gonna pull off another trade with D'Angelo Russell. He's gonna be on his way out the door too if they can make it happen. I don't blame him. I think I want a bigger guy than D'Angelo Russell. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't know if I want him and Steph Curry out there on the 1 and 2, and then Klay Thompson. Even when he comes back, it's as the 3. I don't know, Drew. I look at that and I'm like, even though he's a good defender, even though he's tall, I'm like, he's not exactly a weighty guy. Can you imagine him having a guard like LeBron or something like that for an entire series? I could see him getting worn down. They need some bigger bodies in that team. We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. First, I want to talk about some other Golden State Warrior news, even though this isn't going to only be about them. But there was just this story out there that I had to talk about. The Warriors are retiring Kevin Durant's number 35 number, Drew. 2 championships. Is it too much? Or is it too early to retire a guy who was only there for a few years like that? I mean, I look at that and I'm like, I think they jumped the gun a little bit.
It's a little bit of jumping the gun. But when you have one of the best players ever to play the game, play in your uniform, it's something that people think about doing. Or at least, organizations think about doing. I mean, do I agree with it? No. They didn't
ask
They didn't draft him.
No, and he didn't stick around
He
long
didn't stick
term.
around a long time. What's going on, Dale? Glad you could join us.
And Dale says Klay isn't even going to play next season, he doesn't believe. I think he will. I think you look at the way he wanted to go back and play in Game 7 with a torn ACL. He's going to play next year. We'll see him somewhere around February, maybe even a little earlier than it should be, Drew. But there has to be Klay Thompson next year. I think he's going to come back. Is he going to be as good? I don't know, but I guarantee you he'll be back for some point as long as the Warriors are somewhat competitive. And they got Steph, they got Draymond, now they got Russell for now at least, and maybe someone else that they turn that into. There should at the very least, I believe, be competitive.
Yeah, no, they're going to be competitive. I again will go back to the fact that Curry and Thompson, when he gets healthy, and Green, I mean, they've done it before. What's just them 3? This team's still going to be competitive. Are they going to be the number 1 in the West? Probably not. I think it's going to go down to their experience in playoffs that are going to show the difference between them and other teams.
Ron's saying he won't play either, but I don't know, Ron. I think he's going to be all right. I know some people take longer. So everyone's saying 9 months, maybe even up to a full year with an ACL, but I bet you he comes back. The guy was wanting to finish out Game 6. He came back, took those free throws, wanted to keep playing on a torn ACL.
That's a little bit different with just tears versus when you've had surgery on it, but
I think the want is there. I don't doubt this guy's desire. One thing I will say about Durant is I think retiring jerseys should be something that you save for guys that are career-long or very near career-long guys that play for your team, 10, 12, 15-plus years. I don't care that you won 2 championships with Durant on the team. I mean, you had other guys on those teams. I mean, you're not going to go retire like Festus Ezeli's number, even though he won championships with you, are you? No.
you might.
Harrison Barnes, probably not gonna retire that number. I don't know, Drew. I look at this and I say, what are you doing retiring a guy who chose you for another team? I mean, this is the biggest no hard feelings move I think by the Warriors. But it's okay to have a little bit of hard feelings. You don't need to sit there and say, well, we're still retiring your number, buddy. Thank you. We couldn't have done it without you, because you've done it without him.
I mean, kind of got me for a loss of words, because, I mean, I get what you're saying. I get it, but would they have won those championships without Durant?
Well, they won one without him. Would they have won the 2 they won with him?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, like I said, they won without him. He certainly helped. Let me say that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they could have used him in this one too. So I understand that. I understand the thought process of, yeah, we were good when he was here, but this guy didn't stay beyond a contract with you. I mean, how are you going to retire a jersey so nobody else can have it? What are you going to do if the next superstar says, I want to wear 35, and you're like, oh, we can't. Kevin Durant played here for 3 years in that thing. It's on the shrine now.
That's when they go out and ask Kevin Durant, is it okay if they unretire his number?
You don't even ask him. You just do it, I think. You're the Warriors, right? I think this is the Warriors' not saving face, but this is them saying, oh, no hard feelings. This is, we just want to say how appreciative we are, because I think that will, or at least in their minds, they think that's going to help them lure the next star that they need to bring in, that we treat our players right. We show you respect even if you're not here a long time.
Right.
But, Drew, I mean, talk about not being here a long time. I mean, 4 or 5 years out of Durant,
It's not long.
It's not long enough. Not in my book.
So Deo says, we all know what happens when you come back too early. No doubt about it. I mean,
I'm not saying they need to rush him back, but if you had to pick a guy on this Warriors team that says, I need to be back on the court, I think Klay Thompson might be the first guy that tries to play through injury, tries to rush things. Yeah, I agree. They should slow roll it. There's no reason to. I think they're still going to be, at the very least, somewhere around the 5th or 6th seed in the West. And I know it sounds crazy, but the West is getting good. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Well, the West is getting really good.
Yeah, but it's okay for them to go in at, 6 or 7, even possibly the 8th, and then they get Thompson back. I mean, does it make a difference where they're seated as long as they're in the playoffs,
no,
right?
That's what I'm saying. You just got to make it, and you can make it when you got Durant and Curry on this team. There's still no way Sacramento stacks up against you. There's no way the Suns stack up against you. There are enough teams that you can beat with just 2 superstars, even though the rest of this roster won't exactly be the deepest. But before we get too far off track, Drew, why don't we move into some of these free agent moves? We'll talk about, just really quick, we'll go through them. We'll talk about, is this a good move? Is it a bad move? We'll kind of go on and talk about how much of a threat these additions make these teams.
One quick comment. It says, Brian says, yeah, he can understand if they retire a jersey if he's active in the community and doing stuff for the city. So some of that stuff goes a little unsung if you don't live in that area.
If it was JJ, when you retire a number, this guy should be one of the all-time greats. And when I say all-time greats, I mean for your organization only. This should be Chipper Jones. This should be Cal Ripken. This should be, just depending on what sports you want to go to, this guy needs to make an impact for years and years and years in your community. Short of a J.J. Watt impact on Houston when they had all those floods, I don't think, to me, it's good enough to say that he has done enough. I mean, he could have had a good 3 or 4 years, but guess what? Now he's going on to Brooklyn, and odds are all those charitable events and everything else start happening in Brooklyn instead of happening out there in California, which probably, I don't know, maybe they need the charity. I was going to say, there's a lot of rich people, but there's a lot of poor people out there too.
Rich and poor people everywhere. Just to let you know.
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
Let me write that down.
You better. I mean, they're not in this household. They're all rich.
Going forward, we're going to talk about the NBA free agency. We're going to start with Durant on his way to the Knicks with Kyrie here, and DeAndre Jordan. Obviously, we're going to talk winners and losers in this program too here, but when you're talking to this kind of additions, man, it's hard to not say this team won, right?
I mean, they look good, but you got to remember it's going to be a whole year before you get Durant. So, I mean, it's not like they've turned it around in year 1. It is 2 years out.
And Travis, I'm right there with you. He says he heard today that the Warriors are planning to trade D'Angelo Russell. So who do we think they will trade him to? It's a tough question because there are, to me, they're running out of options. This could have been like a Jimmy Butler trade or something along those lines where you're getting a guy who's potentially a star. I don't see the Warriors trading him for depth. I see the Warriors probably trading Russell and throwing a few pieces in and trying to bring in another star to play with these guys, preferably maybe a bigger guy. You got to remember, DeMarcus Cousins is gone now as well. My question is going to be, who out there has the trade bait that you're going to get enough value back but can also pick up D'Angelo Russell and will be interested in that kind of move? I don't know. I really don't. I don't see that direct partner. So when I heard they were planning on trading him, I was like, okay, to who? Because the Rockets aren't going to trade him for you. You might even consider bringing in someone like Chris Paul that has that little bit of a higher ceiling for D'Angelo Russell, and you trade the youth for the high ceiling. There's not a team out there, at least that I'm looking at, isn't thinking we can win with the Warriors down. So why would anyone trade with the Warriors?
Because it's a business. Because it's a business, and someone thinks that they can get the best out of somebody. And that's what it would do. I mean, that's literally what it would come down with. I mean, you're right.
Mike Conley's already been traded, though. I mean, Memphis has nobody left.
I mean, you're right, though. I mean, it's just, you're asking. It's a possibility. It's business.
I agree. And that's the key to me. The Warriors are going to need to find a team that doesn't necessarily believe it's going to be good enough to win, but has a good enough player that it's worth it to you to trade for D'Angelo Russell and to try to build around him, kind of like Brooklyn did when they brought him in from the Lakers. Yeah. They need to find a team that's still in the growing process and can get a star or a star-level player, but is also not enough of a contender. Because if you're enough of a contender, you're like, I'm not trading with Golden State. I need to beat Golden State.
It's true.
So I don't see that team out there. I really don't. That's to me is going to be one of the more interesting moves here in the next few days to see if they can actually get him off the books or whether they're stuck with him.
Yeah.
Moving forward, let's go back and talk about the Nets for a little bit here, because talk about buying a team, Drew. In free agency. I mean, going into it, they had, I think, the second highest cap space behind the Knicks, who had like $99 million, who, by the way, haven't made any big splash moves that are incredibly important. We'll talk about them in a minute, but this is a tale of two teams, both in New York, both with money to spend. One came away with 2.5, maybe 3 superstars, if DeAndre Jordan's still a superstar, and the other one came away with Julius Randle.
Travis is saying that Jordan is trash, and they heard he got him for fouls. I mean...
Are we talking about Michael Jordan?
No.
DeAndre Jordan.
That's what I said.
They got him for Hack-a-Shack, where someone can sit there and put him on the foul line so Kevin Durant can't take these shots. Look, I'm not going to say DeAndre Jordan's trash. They got him to be a big man. He's going to rebound. You're going to need that rebounder for Kevin Durant, who's going to be ripping a lot of shots. Kyrie Irving's going to be doing a little bit. He's also going to be that big body that's going to hopefully play a little bit of defense on the inside. He's probably not the same guy he was out there for the Clippers. But as far as superstars go, when you only had $10 million to offer him, this is like the Boogie Cousins deal that Golden State just made. And I'd rather have DeAndre Jordan at this point, maybe, than Boogie Cousins, because you're probably going to get 82 games out of Jordan. You're probably going to get a guy who's invested.
Well, that's the question, is who was left out there. If their need was a center, who was left for them to grab? I mean, there's not really a whole lot of guys out there that kind of make you go, oh, let's pick up that guy. He's the best. Cousins would be the one right next to him, but we all know where that is, and it leaves you without a center for more than half the season.
And Tyler does have a point here. He says the Cavs should trade D'Lo for Love, which is D'Angelo Russell. But my question here is, if you're Cleveland, of course you want to do it because you want the young star. Kevin Love can't stay healthy. His back is acting up all the time. I mean, he's one of those guys that's probably not carrying you anywhere. Why would the Golden State Warriors do it? Is my question. Do you think Kevin Love at this point is worth more than D'Angelo Russell? I know maybe you get a bigger body, like I was saying I wanted. Would you do it for the stretch big in Kevin Love that in his 30s is not the same player he was when he was with the Timberwolves? There's no health. I mean,
no.
I think you got to get more out of D'Angelo Russell, Travis. That's the only negative for me. I think Cleveland, if they could do it, would love to do it because you're getting a 20-something-year-old point guard that put up, 22 points a game last year with the Nets, led a team to the playoffs, which Cleveland is desperately looking for a guy that can lead this team or any team. And the question, it's just not an equivalent for me. I think when you look at it, I think Golden State's not going to get enough out of that trade. Also, Ian, we did not talk about Tyler Skaggs, who was found dead on the Angels, got the game canceled today. The police said they don't suspect foul play, but that's the only thing we've been able to read up on it. There's not a whole lot of information out there, which tells me it was either drugs or something like Ambien, like a sleeping medication that he might have, which is a drug, but, a legal one, that he probably took too much of. Yeah. The other thing, we talk about football, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I don't mean it to be. We talk about football being a dangerous game here. Seems like baseball has a lot of these off-the-field accidents where guys wind up dead. I mean, Roy Halladay crashing his plane. The Marlins lost their pitcher in a boating accident. What was that, 2012 or 2011 or 2015 or something like that. Baseball has all these weird off-the-field deaths that I really you just don't really associate that with the game of baseball. But this is the third or fourth guy that's died considerably young here in the past few years.
Yeah, you said the Royals pitcher, right?
Marlins, right?
No, it was Royals.
The Royals had one? No, the Marlins had one.
The Royals had one too.
I can't remember. I know he's Hispanic, but I can't remember.
I think you're thinking.
It's gonna sound bad, but his name is I think it's Sanchez or I forget. But I do remember that the Marlins lost one too in a boating accident. Maybe the Royals lost one as well.
Jose Hernandez.
Yes. Was that Royals or was that Marlins?
That was the Marlins, but there's a Royals one too. They're ace, and I can't think of his name.
Exactly. I mean we talk about football being the dangerous game. Maybe baseball's the one you need to steer your kids away from. And I don't mean that to be a joke, but I'm saying this is a weird trend in in all sports. You'd think baseball is one of those games that you're safe from, but I guess not.
Going back to what the Nets did in their free agency, Brian says they're bringing Jordan in for the defense. Well, there's no doubt about it, man. That guy is exactly what he is. He's a defensive player. He loves to rebound the ball. You just don't want him at the foul line shooting.
Another one here. Brian says Russell should be traded to the Knicks for draft picks. And I got to say this. If you're the Knicks, after the way this free agency went, you don't trade those draft picks. You hang on to those things because there's a very good chance you're winding up 1, 2, and 3. Again, you just need to hope for a Zion-level prospect coming out to make it worth drafting up at the top end because the story for them is they were willing to talk to Kevin Durant. And I even said this. Should teams be a little hesitant before signing him? They said they didn't want to offer Kevin Durant a max because they were worried about his injury and at his age. I understand that if you're a mid-range team. If this was the Portland Trail Blazers, who are they're at the top. If you were the Brooklyn Nets from last year and you have Russell and maybe the chance of bringing in Kevin Durant, I understand pumping the brakes a little bit and saying maybe this injury keeps him off the court too long or he doesn't come back the same and we're going to waste our franchise's next 4 or 5 years with a guy that's not able to come back. But you can't do that when you're at the bottom, right? You have to get better. You have to roll the dice at that point. To me, this is a terrible move by the Knicks.
The Knicks?
The Knicks, by not offering him a full...
No, you're right.
Full contract.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I have to agree with... I'm sorry, I missed out on the comment here, but someone said that the Knicks are stuck in purgatory. You're 100% right, man. It seems like these last 50 years, they just seem to not be able.
This isn't purgatory. This is hell.
They haven't made the right moves. Well, it's not on fire yet.
No, they're on fire. They're on fire.
And
Come on, Drew.
They seem to not be able to make the right moves. I mean,
RJ Barrett, fingers crossed.
And I like RJ Barrett.
He scored a lot of points. I don't like RJ Barrett on the Knicks, but I like RJ Barrett.
Well, yeah, I like RJ Barrett as a basketball player, and I really kind of hope that his kind of possible stardom would bring some of these players there, but it just seems to really be struggling. I mean, you look at some of the signings that they've already done so far, and Julius Randle. I mean, do you bring someone in like him? Does it make your team competitive?
That's we need to sell a few tickets.
Yeah.
We need to avoid embarrassing ourselves. But no, Julius Randle is nowhere near enough. I mean, the fact that that's all they came out of with the team with the most free agent money just shows you how little teams believe in it. Because remember all the talk beforehand? They're like, they're going to get Zion. They're going to get the number 1 draft pick. Okay, that falls through. That's out of your control. Then the talk is they're getting Durant. They're getting Kyrie. They're all going to team up. Kawhi and Durant are talking about playing on a team together. Guess who's got the most free money and is able to shape the team to help these guys and lure them in? And then next thing you know, everybody signed. And you're left holding, what, Julius Randle? This is embarrassing. They are punting. They are punting, Drew. They paid Julius Randle because they want to at least win like 10 or 12 games so that they can sell something to their fan base. This, to me, how are you paying for those seats in Madison Square Garden, man? Like, I couldn't do it. Think about how much you're paying to watch the worst team tank in basketball probably from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
And everyone's ripping the Knicks. I don't want to, like, pile on, but everybody's right to rip the Knicks here.
I'm going to go ahead and pile some more on with these comments. Steve said, you can safely say that they are a dumpster fire.
And they have been, but things only get worse. I mean, everyone thought when Carmelo came to town, they're like, oh, this is the time. This is where the Knicks rebound, right? That never worked out. They moved on from Carmelo, and what have they done since then? Nothing. I mean, the fact that they're not even willing to offer Kevin Durant a full max-level contract just means you're not being run right, because when you're at the bottom and you have nothing to lose is when you offer those contracts and say, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, there's a chance he comes back and he's really good and he gets his franchise back on track. You can't just live with what you've got. I mean, the NBA has showed you cannot build through the draft in this kind of league and expect it to work out. Look at the Sixers. They've been trusting the process for like a decade now, and they still fell short.
Yeah.
You can say it was one shot short of beating the world champs, but you could also sit there and say that they didn't show up for a lot of those games. And Ben Simmons can't shoot. Joel Embiid has attitude issues, and trusting the process doesn't work too well. And the Knicks are like, that failed, so let's do it too.
Yeah. John said the Knicks dropped the ball not offering KD the max. I mean, who else are they holding their money for if you're the Knicks? Julius Randle.
And what are you going to do with Kawhi, though? Like, maybe everyone's like, you can land Kawhi. What is your pitch? Like, man, we got you Julius Randle. We have RJ Barrett on the team. You're going to get to be a leader. That would be the one selling point I have. It's going to be your team when you want someone to come over here. But you got to convince him to sign a 4-year deal, probably with player options. There's no way he's going to stick around. There's no way he's even going to consider you in the first place. But even if he does, he's just going to bail on you after the first couple of years anyway. They missed the ball. They needed to sign any one of these names we're going to talk about here. And it's like they were asleep on free agency day when it rolled over, and for the week leading up to it, because they're talking to each other. They're sending their players out like, hey, go recruit for me.
It was like they're bargaining hunting. They saw all the great things you could buy, but they're like, hold on, let me give you 20 for that instead of 30. Like, they were hoping to, like, someone's like, hey, we're the Knicks. You want to come play with us because it's Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, but you'll be the only guy in town, and everybody has figured out it doesn't matter where you're playing, it matters who you're playing with.
Joey, what's going on, man? It's not September yet, but I don't know if I can say go them boys, man. I'm glad you could join us. Brian, I see you too, man. I'm glad you're in here. Scott says KD might not even be the same player sitting out a year. Do you see a decline in his play?
Potentially, yeah. It's a risk.
I've said I don't see it at all because I think just the style of play he does. I just want to hear what you have to say.
It's still a risk. I mean, he still needs to generate a little bit of space. He's more of a dribble and get open guy than Clay is. He's not the catch and shoot totally guy where you can leave me out of the play and let everyone forget about me. It still is about Kevin Durant. He needs to dribble around, make some space. If he doesn't come back with the same speed and the same cutting ability, yeah, it could have a negative impact, I think. I think you're absolutely right, Scott. It's a risk. But when you're the Knicks, you take that risk because what else you got going on? At the very least, you give the people of New York some little shining false ray of hope that says, we're going to be good because we signed what used to be the best player in the world, or second best player in the world if you like LeBron, or third best if you got another guy you want to put up there. The fact that you're passing when the team looks like this is terrible. Just terrible for me. This is the move that Brooklyn, who made the playoffs last year, could have passed on. Instead, they chose to play aggressive with Golden State being on a down year here. They said, we don't care. We're willing to bet on years moving forward, 2020 and beyond. This is almost like I said, they flipped the scripts. The Nets played aggressively when they could have been conservative, and the Knicks played conservative when there's no reason to not be aggressive with $90 million in your pocket.
Steve says the Lakers are gonna be signing mediocre players regardless of if
they're all in on Kawhi now.
And that's my next thing is Travis says Kawhi is going to be a Laker. He is betting anyone who wants to take that bet. Do you see enough lure that brings someone like Kawhi there? Because
yes,
the way Brian says, he says, why leave an NBA championship team when you own the East? He's saying Kawhi would be smart if he stays where he's
because
at.
I drag this team. Because maybe I don't believe in Siakam evolving as a player. Maybe I don't believe in Fred VanVleet's magical run in the playoffs. Maybe I don't believe Kyle Lowry is the number 2 that I want to have, especially even his performance in the finals where we saw him disappear some games. We saw him get in some foul trouble. I know he drew a lot of charges in the playoffs, but that's not always enough to win series. Kawhi is going to want to be competitive again, and he's probably looking at the East and saying, man, we beat the 76ers by the hair of our ass. I mean, it took a crazy shot for me in the corner with 4 bounces and then a lucky roll in to beat a team like the Sixers. I need to go somewhere where it's not entirely on me, because you got to remember, this guy's used to being on the Spurs, where it's team basketball. You've got other guys to spread it around. I mean, that to me is the biggest question. Can Toronto sell him on him having enough help in Toronto to win it again? Or is he sitting there saying, man, we won, but we got a little lucky doing it. We got lucky the Warriors came in banged up, and we got lucky with that bouncing on the 76ers, and we got lucky that Giannis and the rest of the Bucks are still maybe a year or two away from being mentally prepared to be in those kind of situations. You can't tell me that Toronto has the best sell when you got the Lakers that say, I have LeBron James, 3-time champion. I have Anthony Davis, arguably top 5 player in the world. You're going to come in and add it. I don't care who else is on this team. We're going to be able to rotate these stars and have a top 4 team in the West already. There's definitely pulling the Lakers. There has to be.
No doubt about it. Catch up on more of these comments here. You guys are blowing up on the comment section.
Did I say too much?
No, you're good. This is great. Cody says, so KD reminds him right now of a player just out of his prime, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Maybe he can make a resurgence like he did when he went to the Lakers with Magic.
And as much as I've said pump the brakes, be worried about it and everything else, you trust doctors. It's 2019. The game isn't the same it used to be. ACLs, Achilles, these aren't career-ending injuries anymore. You trust doctors, and you trust your team's ability.
And these players are coming back sooner and sooner. That's why when you sit there and said Thompson won't play, man, I to be honest with you, I bet he plays his first game before the regular season ends.
And Therese saying Magic is trying to sell in Kawhi. He can't officially be involved in anything. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think Magic Johnson is probably the last guy saying, hey, go to the Lakers, especially after that exit. I think he might be still a little salty about all the backstabbing that apparently went on with the Lakers. I don't know about Magic, but I guarantee you LeBron is. You're right in that aspect, Travis. LeBron is doing everything. He put him in Space Jam. Yeah. They're funneling money under the table to Anthony Davis to get him to play for cheaper. They want Kawhi Leonard as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. John said that Siakam is, you know the guy's name.
Siakam.
Yes. There we go. I knew I was saying it wrong. Is the number 2 on that team.
Yeah, well, he was last year.
We
saw him ascend.
Lowry definitely took a step back.
Right. And we saw him ascend, right? The problem is, are we going to see that trend continue? And as much as everyone wants to bet on him, and I like his trajectory, that's still a roll of the dice. When you can go play with LeBron and Anthony Davis, who you don't have any worries about whether they're going to be elite or not, right? There's a little bit of concern about the health, but I'm Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I had that injured year with the Spurs, but I'm still young. I can carry the load. I can do the dirty work, do the heavy lifting during the regular season, keep those guys fresh. And you're talking about rolling into the playoffs with that big three? Not to mention, every one of those guys has size.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard's like the smallest of them. He's a small forward. LeBron can play the 4. You put Anthony Davis at the 5. All of a sudden, you have 3 guys no one is going to be able to stop because you've got 3 freight trains going inside.
You don't want LeBron playing at 4.
You can play
He
LeBron
can play
at 4.
it, but you don't
Absolutely.
want him to play at 4.
The question is going to be, does he have enough in the tank, and will he have enough stamina to guard a 4? But these days, with 4s getting smaller, can you imagine stacking up against Golden State like that? And Draymond's the biggest guy on the court? Or they get a big guy, like they did with Bogut, bringing him in, and then LeBron's on Draymond? I'd be okay playing with the 4. The game's getting small enough, Drew. I think that's okay.
I see what you're saying. I just don't know if that's where I'd want to play him. Brian says he's been saying for weeks that KD should have stayed with Curry and kept winning, but nope. In glorious fashion, he wants to prove something in Brooklyn, and he said he's going to fail.
Well, we got to wait a year to find out, right? More than likely. You never know. I think Brooklyn is punting 2019 almost. I think Kyrie Irving probably isn't enough. Maybe they get in this like an 8 seed.
I like the fact that KD won't be on the floor this year, and I know no one wants to see a guy get hurt, and I'm not saying I'm glad he's hurt. What I'm excited about is the fact that Kyrie and Jordan and the rest of the group they put around him is going to have time to become a team. And then when you throw arguably the best player in the NBA into that scenario, I don't think he's going to take a step back. Will it be a little bit slow? Yeah, every player that gets hurt takes a little bit of step back. But when he gets back to hitting those threes and those long balls, just a 7-foot guy back there behind the 3-arc line that's literally deadly as anybody else that's on the court. I mean, when you have camaraderie of a team that got building for a year and you always knew this guy was going to be there, I think it's a step up in 2020 or 2021 season more than a lot of people think. It sucks not to have him, but that, like I said, that 1 year of practice to get ready to have him is going to be huge.
I agree. The only thing I'll say is now all of a sudden the Nets are a team of mercenaries, and we've seen it work in the NBA before, but bringing in 3 big guys like that, we've seen attitude out of Kyrie when he's not the main guy. I mean, that's the reason he forced an out from Cleveland, right? I mean, imagine if he would have stayed and not forced a move to Boston. What could that have done? LeBron could still be playing in Cleveland right now, honestly. Then you got KD coming in, who, despite the chemistry with Golden State and the way he was able to move the ball, Kyrie's not the same guy that Klay Thompson or Steph Curry is. He's just not. I think when you look at it, you're in a risk of sabotaging the kind of locker room a little bit because Kyrie doesn't get along as well with people. Then you got DeAndre Jordan. The question is going to be, is he going to be able to live up to his star potential? They're taking risks, but I have no problem with this. When you got this kind of money, I have no problem moving on from D'Angelo Russell, who, yes, he had an all-star year. But am I willing to bet on D'Angelo Russell putting this up on a team with guys like Steph Curry? Let's say he sticks in Golden State. Is he going to be an all-star again? No. He benefited from that in Brooklyn because when everybody got hurt, he was the last man standing and was able to run everything through him. You're not running everything through you on a good team. Nobody does. Even you look at Durant last year. Not everything ran through him. Not everything ran through Curry. You have to learn to work with the guys around you. I just wonder if Jordan and Kyrie are going to be able to work with someone like Durant, and if they're going to have the same chemistry we saw out there in Golden State.
Yeah, I think so, man. I don't think you're going to see a lot of...
It's not so much Durant. I'm worried about Kyrie.
But Kyrie's already dealt with the biggest, I want the ball in my hands always, LeBron James.
But then
Durant.
LeBron... No, that's James Harden. But
But Durant isn't that style of player. He's not like that. I think that he's going to fit in perfectly fine. Brian says, do you think Kawhi wants to play with LeBron James?
No, I don't think he wants to play with LeBron James, but I think he wants to win, and I don't think he wants to absolutely drag a team. I think he likes the Clippers better, perhaps, but that lure of Anthony Davis and LeBron, I think he just wants to win. You look at him last year, there was literally no emotion. It was just about, I want to win. I'm here to win. He was a machine. He wants to win championships. What's the fastest way to do it? Would you bet on the Clippers or would you bet on the Lakers here? I think I'd bet on the Lakers.
Chris is saying, please, Kawhi, come to the Lakers. And so Brian is saying, supposedly Kawhi's agent has contacted Magic Johnson at church on Sunday and was talking back and forth.
No, I haven't heard that one. I heard Kawhi said, I want to talk to Jeannie Buss and I want to talk to Magic Johnson. And I guarantee you the question was going to be, so what the hell happened? Right? I mean, that would be my first question. What happened
that forced
him out?
Conversation was having right there.
And I bet you he wants to ask Magic, especially, like, hey, is there any reason I don't need to sign with a team like the Lakers? Is there any reason why you would tell me not to do it? Because who better than a disgruntled employee? And I know Magic spent a lot of years in the Lakers. I wouldn't call him entirely disgruntled. I'm sure he still loves the organization. But when you get fired and someone asks you, man, like, hey, what's going on with this? Should I work there? You're going to tell him the truth, right? And I think that's what he wants. I think he wants to get, like, the most honest opinion about what it's going to be like playing with LeBron, playing with this Lakers organization, playing under Pelinka.
I think he can go to a lot of players to find out how it is playing with LeBron.
No, because they're all traded.
I think he is talking about the organization.
By a lot of players, you mean Kyle Kuzma. Because he's like the last man standing. Like, hey, is it okay here, man? I think, yes, absolutely, Kawhi Leonard is considering playing with the Lakers. I don't know if I'd call them the favorite. I think it's between them and the Clippers, and then I would put Toronto maybe as not a distant third, but when we heard that, oh, he'll allow the Lakers or the Raptors to make a final pitch to him, that tells me you're not on the same levels as some of these other teams that he's already ready to talk to.
No doubt.
And yeah, Travis was saying that he heard that Magic and Kawhi were talking as well. I agree with you, man. I think that's who I would want to talk to if I was Kawhi Leonard. I'd want to talk to Magic Johnson so I could really ask him, like, hey, you had your hands in everything and things didn't go right. Tell me what's going on with this organization because you got nothing left to lose.
Brian, thank you. Magic did step down, but we kind of both agree, at least me and Jake here, think that it was more kind of a push out. He might say he stepped down, but usually something like that, when it's that kind of money and that kind of organization, they've had conversations where it's probably saying, hey, this is best for you to step down.
And Chris is absolutely hoping Kawhi goes to the Lakers. I don't want to see that. I think the NBA will be better if he goes to the Clippers or even back to the Raptors. We'll have parity for the first time in 8, 9, 10 years. Pretty much, you could almost say all the way back when Boston had the big three. We'll have parity in the NBA for the first time in a long time, where this could be 4, 5, maybe even 6 teams that have a good chance of winning the championship.
No doubt about it. Why don't we get back to some of these free agency moves? I know we kind of got off the mark. Let's talk about Middleton staying with the Bucks. I mean, he got paid.
He did, and this to me, even though it's a win, you're getting Middleton back at a more expensive rate. It's going to limit what you can do in free agency. If I was Giannis, I would go to Chris Middleton before all this happened, and I would have said, look, man, I'm on a cheap deal too, at least from comparative to what I could be paid.
Yeah.
I'm not on that super max for 5 years and everything. You need to take a cheaper deal so we can bring in another star and win this thing, because we didn't stack up against Toronto. I mean, we came out flat, and maybe you could say it's experience. Maybe these guys weren't mentally prepared for that level. You know, there's that old saying, you got to lose one before you win one. But if I'm Giannis or I'm the rest of the Bucks, I would be selling Chris Middleton on, please stay for somewhat cheaper. Don't super max us out. But that's what he did. I mean, he got a lot of money from him. The question to me now is, how bad does that hurt the Bucks? Because Brook Lopez got paid as well to stick around. We're talking about them paying a lot of guys that I like Chris Middleton. I like Brook Lopez. But are they the best of the best in the NBA?
I get what you're saying, and it makes sense. But you know what I think? I don't think any player is going to go to another player and ask them to take less money.
Well, I think we've already seen it. I think KD and Kyrie
happen.
both took a little bit less than they could have, so they could give DeAndre Jordan $10 million. I think that happens in the NBA more than other sports.
That's a little bit different for players that have already made millions. We're talking about Chris Middleton here,
who was like due $13 million, and I get it. He's making 20 now, but
I'm just saying he hasn't made.
I would ask
money
him, like, take
yet.
17 or 18, help the team out, split the difference. Instead, you're going to go get all this money. And I'm with you, John. It is a big win for Chris Middleton, but is it a win for the Milwaukee Bucks? And in long term, if you want to make money in the NBA, if you want those massive shoe deals, if you want to make money off of the court, the best way to do that is to win. And I think a team like Milwaukee that has a young star like Giannis, Middleton's not old either, he's a great shooter. If you win a championship or two, you could become another one of those guys that we talk about all the time. He's one of the best in the NBA.
Right. I would also say this is a win for the Bucks. And John's with you. He said he should have went for less, but I'll tell you why. Is they left a good shooter, a good player on their team instead of letting that star or an up and rising star go somewhere else. I mean, you're not going to replace Middleton.
No, you don't let him walk. They did what they had to do.
Exactly. You had to pay this guy to keep him there.
I agree with you, Drew. I think you're absolutely right there. But the problem is in today's NBA, there are enough guys, I don't want to call it humility, but there are enough guys who are willing to take less on the court to make more off the court and win some championships. I don't think that's why Kawhi did it last year, but I believe there are a lot of guys, like you even look at you look everywhere. I mean, there are guys who are willing to take those pay cuts. Look at Golden State. DeMarcus Cousins played for $5 million so he could be relevant again and make some more money.
The thing is, we're talking about superstars asking
and Chris Middleton's not a superstar yet.
No, he's not.
Well, Giannis is a superstar.
Hold on. We're talking about superstars asking superstars.
Other superstars. Is DeMarcus Cousins still a superstar?
He's got a bigger name than Chris Middleton, yes, 100%.
Does he have more talent at this point than Chris Middleton? Because
No.
I think Chris Middleton might add more to a team.
Scott is going to say probably yes, maybe, because he said wasted money on this guy. He's barely an all-star. Man,
Well, barely an all-star is still pretty good, right? But, I mean,
you
you're talking
do beer?
about... Yeah, I do. You're talking about, like, the top 15 guys in the NBA, at least. I think, yes, Chris Middleton is still worth it. You still pay him that much money because it's better than letting him walk and go do what he does for another team. But, yeah, it hurts you. It's going to limit the team going forward on how much you're able to do in free agency next year. And even the mid-range players, you're not going to be able to pull them in. You're going to have to go veteran minimum guys because Giannis is going to get paid.
Yeah.
And that's okay, unless he's got the humility to back off and take less money. But I think odds are, at least for that first contract, the money's going to be too alluring. And that might be why the Milwaukee Bucks don't win a championship with this team. I really do believe that.
Oh, I don't know, man. I think Middleton has a chance to still develop his shooting game, and he's still a great shooter. You know, we said it ourselves. The Lakers would kill to have someone like Middleton being in their lineup, being able to shoot the way he does. For the Bucks to keep him, it was huge. They did have to overpay him because I am with Scott. He's barely an all-star, but to keep your young talent, sometimes you do have to open up the checkbook a little bit.
Also, I don't want to get too far off track, but Ian makes a good point here, so I'm going to go through this really quick. He says the free agent money in the NBA and the MLB is what's going to kill the NFL. Why go through all the physical abuse that you do in the NFL while you can get paid in the NBA and save the wear and tear? The simple reason is this. There's 15 guys in an NBA team, and 3 or 4 of them are making that kind of money?
Yeah.
The rest of those guys aren't making squat. I mean, they're making that veteran minimum somewhere around like 1.5, just depending on how long you've been in the league. I know it scales up. I think you can get close to like 1.8 or almost $2 million a year. The fact of the matter is you're on an NFL team. The money spreads around a lot more. There's 54 guys on an NFL team, and each one of them, even the quarterbacks, they may make $25, $30 million, but you can be a middle linebacker and get paid by somebody. You can be a cornerback and get paid by somebody. You can be an offensive lineman and get paid by somebody. In the NBA, you're either the guy or you're not.
Ian, to be honest with you, the reason is the number one sport in America is the NFL. That's where all the money is. Yeah, maybe the players aren't getting that contract, but they're getting in other places and endorsements and stuff like that. These players, I get that they don't get the big contracts the MLB and the NBA does, but you're literally talking maybe 1 year, maybe 3 players that might have made an NFL team decided to go in the NBA instead, or might have decided to go to the MLB. But look at Kyler Murray. He decided to go with the NFL. Look at Russell Wilson. He's in the NFL. Some of these players that you're talking about might flip-flop and decide to go somewhere else. Do I see it destroying the NFL? Absolutely not. It's the number one sport in America. It's not going anywhere, man.
And on top of that, the MLB, I know I talked about why you wouldn't want to join the NBA or you might be a little hesitant to do it. The MLB, it's so easy to get lost in the minor leagues. You can be a top prospect and just never work out and get stuck in the minors and wind up making $80K for the rest of your life when you left millions and millions of dollars off of that rookie contract on the table that the NFL gives you.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare for baseball to pay guys tons and tons of money. Sometimes they do, especially high schoolers get big paydays. But for the most part, a lot of these even top-round picks don't make anything until you find a way to claw your way to the majors.
Correct. One more a couple of comments from Ian, and then we'll move on from this subject because we don't want to get off subject. But he says more youth will start in baseball and basketball instead of the NFL because parents are afraid of concussions. Let me just tell you this real quick, man. How I went down my line, I played soccer, I played baseball, and I played basketball, and then I played football, and I stuck with football because that's what I enjoyed doing. And kids will all make their decisions up. I mean, some of these kids will stick with baseball instead of football, but that's just what it is being a kid.
We're assuming baseball is going to have the same money. I mean, baseball's been losing popularity. It's been losing ground to the NBA, the NHL, and the NFL for years now. Where are we going to be in 20 or 30 years? I don't know if the MLB is going to be able to dole out these $400 million contracts to some of these guys, or $383 million contracts and everything like that. My question is going to be, can baseball sustain the level of interest for it? I know baseball does well in its markets. It still has its diehard fans, but baseball fans are getting older as a generation. They have not done a good job of connecting with children. That, to me, is going to be the biggest minus for the MLB. And basketball, like I said, there's only so many slots. you're going to miss the NBA or your basketball team in high school because you can only have 12, 15, 18 guys if it's high school and you're younger. You're going to lose out on that. I think a lot of guys, at the very least, you're going to get football players because I just wasn't good enough to make it in basketball. Or I do both. And when I'm talking to my advisors, I can make money playing football for sure. Maybe I make it to the NBA, maybe I don't. It's a scary thing. There's only 2 rounds in basketball. I mean, that should scare you, right? 60 guys off the board.
And one thing, I get that there's more games, and that's why they consider paying more, but there is actually some more downtime in the NFL, too, because they're not playing so many games. When you sit there and you play 82 games, and you play, I don't know, I can't remember how many baseball plays.
162.
162. I mean, that's a lot of time away from your family, away from things that you enjoy doing beyond the game itself. Just to catch up on some of these comments, Brian says the Bucks won't win a championship. Chalk it up, Jake.
Also, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Another year, another $1 million off to Bobby Bonilla, formerly of the Mets. They got to pay him out through 2035. One of the best negotiated contracts ever, Drew, sports history. So, absolutely, July 1st, special holiday for everybody in sports, or especially not for the Mets. They don't enjoy that.
Brian was also saying he has a weird feeling about the Pelicans that they're going to go off next year.
So, spoiler alert, they're one of my winners of this free agency period. They've done a good job of recouping from losing a star. I mean, most teams don't really bounce back like that.
Brian says, do you think Middleton can be traded by the All-Star break and could be traded for like D'Lo or Jimmy?
Well, I don't want Russell. I think everybody's overly high on D'Angelo Russell because again, he had a good year on a team that had a decent core around him, but didn't have a superstar that was going to be eating into the minutes and everything. I don't think we see the same guy in 2019 we saw in 2018. I don't think they're going to want to deal him for that at that point. Jimmy Buckets, maybe. I mean, I don't know why the Heat are so hot and heavy for him. I mean, I get it. They want to be good again. But on top of it, I don't know why Houston has kind of pulled off. I mean, don't you think Jimmy Butler playing next to James Harden? I know you'd be a little small with him and Chris Paul in the court. But you talk about scoring potential. I mean, that to me, I'm kind of confused why Houston's not trying to make some stuff happen. They were the ones going into free agency, even when they got knocked out of the playoffs, saying, we're going to make things happen. Here's your chance. And they just never could put it together.
What's going on, Jeremy? Glad you could join us, man.
Absolutely. So that's a little strange to me. Why don't we talk about a few of these other guys? Because we've talked about Chris Middleton. We've talked about the Nets. We only have about 40 other more points.
Yeah, that should be fine.
All right, Kemba Walker to Boston. We'll kind of go a little bit more rapid fire here.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about him, though. Because to me, when you look at the stats, I get it. Charlotte didn't have the talent around him that Boston had, but the stats are pretty close to what Kyrie had. And what's more, you're getting a guy who's much more of a team player. Let's not forget, he's the same guy
That's
going
my major point. Yep.
Going into free agency that told Charlotte, hey, I will take less money if you can lure somebody here. Obviously, everyone said, man, I'm not going to go play in Charlotte. So he took the leave. He took his leave. He left.
Yeah.
This, to me, is a win for Boston. I don't like Al Horford leaving, but I like that a lot better than giving a 33-year-old guy a 4-year contract like you wound up getting. I'll talk about that in a minute, but
right.
You let a 33-year-old go, you let an attitude problem in Kyrie Irving go, and you brought in a guy with similar production who is the same age or a year older and a team player. I don't want to call them winners, but they're winners, Drew.
No, they're winners. This is a better player for your locker room. Maybe he won't fill up as many seats as Kyrie can. That's just because he played in Charlotte. Give that half a season, maybe a quarter of a season, where you can sit there and see what Walker can do in Boston. And this guy is going to be bigger than Kyrie ever was in a Lakers uniform. I think this is one of the best pickups, minus like your Durant and your Kawhi. This was a name that was kind of somewhat under the radar because of where he was coming from. This is a huge signing for Boston.
The talk, at least, was the Lakers want Kemba Walker, and I would credit the Lakers if they could have got it done because I would have said they're the favorite to win the championship if they did.
Yeah,
I think he's a great player that played in Charlotte with nobody around him and always found a way to make things work. Boston capitalized on it first. Again, the Lakers kind of held out. I think they still want Kawhi, and they're willing to wait on this. That's why my loser category is going to be a little different or a little bit more interesting to talk about than just these guys lost, these guys won.
Right.
We'll talk about that in a minute, but they missed out on Kemba Walker by wanting to win the Kawhi sweepstakes.
Yeah.
If it works, that's great. I mean, you got the better player. If it doesn't, man, you shot yourself in the foot. Also, Ian, don't worry about changing the subject, man. We love great sports comments. That was a great one. We just don't necessarily have time to explore that as deeply as we would love to do.
Maybe down the road we'll do an episode doing that.
Absolutely. Also, Brian says Butler and Harden will clash too much. I get it, but when you're a GM, you have to sit there and go through and say, man, how many points am I putting on the board here? I'm with you. I think that's part of the reason why it fell apart. Maybe Jimmy Butler told him I have no interest in playing with James Harden because I want to shoot too. Both can be volume shooters.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's hard to say. I think Harden's going to have an issue playing with anybody that is going to take time away from the ball out of his hands. I think that's something the Houston Rockets have decided that's going to be their chink in their armor, is the fact they're going to live and die by James Harden.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, I still like it, but I'm saying get somebody around him. Put people around him. Find guys who are going to be able to work with his personality.
No, I'm right there with you.
I think that was supposed to be Chris Paul, but again, I have problems signing 33-year-old players. Let me talk about that really quick. Al Horford goes to the 76ers on a 4-year, $109 million contract. The Sixers are all in now, right? The process is over. Now it's time to win. It's been trust the process up to this point, and yet, even last year when they lost, I said, it's still a process, right? We're improving. We're getting better. Yeah. I heard a lot of 76ers fans say that. It's still a process. It was one bad shot. Next year, we're going to come back better. You don't give a 33-year-old a 4-year contract worth $109 million if it's still the process. We're going to win now, and 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to be screwed. I almost didn't say screwed. We are going to be screwed because you're going to be paying a 37-year-old guy $25 million in the NBA, Drew. I get it, the salary cap goes up, but it didn't go up that much.
Oh, man.
I like Al Horford, too. I think he's a great guy. I think this contract would be better if I had a team option somewhere around year 2.
This is why he gave up his option in Boston, is because he knew a team would go out there and pay him something like this with a lot longer contract. It was something that he was saying, his agent was saying, we can do it, and he did it. Jeremy says that Houston needs to dump Chris Paul's contract somehow, but nobody wants it.
And this is the same story, except instead of a point guard, who historically tend to last a little bit longer than the big men, you're getting a center.
Right.
And whether he plays center or whether he plays the power forward because he can shoot a little bit, it doesn't matter. You're getting a big man at 33, and you're going to be paying him until he's 37. Not a little bit. You've been paying this man close to not quite a max contract, but you're going to be giving him $20-some million a year.
What?
To be 37 years old in the NBA almost 7 foot tall, Drew.
What they're looking at here, and I'm trying to look at through the eyes of the 76ers front office, is we're going to get a player that could play into his late 30s, who is not going to be the center point of our offense, but it might be a center point of this defense. Because historically, yes, point guards, shooting guards last longer than centers do, but there are some of those centers, kind of like Al, who's played his career so far, who could possibly still be decent in that. So if they're talking about building, and that team got that far in the playoffs, maybe they're just that one piece away from going a little bit further.
I'm going to go a different direction. Maybe that's what they were thinking. Maybe they said we can stretch this out. Maybe he doesn't have the wear and tear on him. We've seen him be elite even into year 32.
Right.
But I think this is more of them channeling the spirit of Al Davis. They said, just win, baby. They saw that shot by Kawhi Leonard as their invitation and said, man, this team dominated the Bucks. That could have been us dominating the Bucks and moving on and playing a broken Golden State. This could have been just as easily us hoisting the trophy. I think this is them saying we just got to get a little bit better and we can win. And are they better? Jimmy Butler gone and bring in Horford?
Owen made a good comparison in the sense of what I was talking about. He said he brought up Tim Duncan. But there's definitely a huge difference between Al and Tim. Mm-hmm. We all know that.
No, I agree.
But you're absolutely right, Owen. That's a perfect
But
example.
Even the last few years of Tim Duncan, I mean, the Spurs were winning, but you weren't like, Tim Duncan is leading this team. It was Tim Duncan.
You know what? Actually,
everyone was talking about, like, man, he's still playing.
Maybe it should have been more of a David Robertson comparison, because that's kind of what it was. Because when they won his last championship, he was on the late 30s, and the offense was not around him, but he was still a major point to that team. I don't know if they would have won that year without David.
Before we
not talk,
right?
But Robinson, yes.
Before we talk about Derrick Rose and JJ Redick here, I just want to say the Sixers have finally arrived. Right, the process is over. This is win now mode. This has to be when you're signing a 33-year-old to a $109 million contract. You're in a we're going to win in the next few years, or we're going to blow up the team. They're talking about extending Ben Simmons. I can't imagine they're going to let Joel Embiid walk because he's the best player on the team.
Right.
Beyond that, Drew, I mean, they got Tobias Harris back too.
Yes.
So they've got guys.
They do.
But is that enough to win? I want to say potentially, but I would have liked it better. Maybe they hung on to Jimmy Butler and just said we can run it again, and it was a lucky shot from the corner in a Game 7 buzzer beater that we've never had before. We were just extremely unlucky, and we could do it with this team. And maybe Jimmy Butler didn't want to come back. I don't know all that, but I would have liked to see him stick with what they had instead of going 33-year-old and letting Jimmy Butler walk, who can shoot.
These next two players are players that I think the Lakers should have had on their board. And when we're talking about what the Lakers should have done, I think these are two players that would have fit exactly some of the needs that they have. Let's go ahead and get into them. Let's go ahead and get into J.J. Redick.
J.J. Redick would have been great. I think any kind of two-guard like that can just rip shots at a high percentage from three when everyone forgets about him is perfect. And I think everyone would have forgot about him with Anthony Davis and LeBron. Not as crazy about D. Rose. I know he doesn't have the athleticism anymore, Drew, but he's never been the guy that just drains a bunch of shots. He can shoot okay, but he's not Steph Curry out there. He's a guy that still, I think, needs to operate and drive in a little bit. I like the Redick signing for sure for the Lakers. Derrick Rose, if it was a pinch and that's all you had, sure, but I think they're going to be doing a lot of work at the basket with AD and LeBron. I would have loved to see him sign Redick. This, to me, is the deal they should have made. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's like a second-tier option for me. I want shooters now.
I don't think they're getting Kawhi. I hate to break anyone's heart. I don't see the Lakers picking up Kawhi.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Oh, and Derrick Rose dropped 51 points last year. Well, I'm not saying he's back, man. You were just telling me
he doesn't shoot that well.
Well, I know, but a lot of those were inside, too. He's back, but he's not the same guy he was. Continue.
Yeah. Nah, it was just a point to get across. It was just the fact that these are players that if everyone's claiming the Lakers are going to win the West, that they should be picking up because a lot of these players, Walker, Kyrie, Middleton, all these players that we personally have targeted towards the Lakers, that we thought the addition of AD and LeBron would make some of these players go there. Their pickings are getting very slim to fill up the rest of the roster.
It's Kawhi or bust. It really is. It's Kawhi or bust. I agree.
That's why I'm afraid I don't think that they're going to get him.
I agree. Also, Harrison Barnes signs a huge contract with the Kings so that Sacramento can be halfway decent next year. I'm not crazy about this either, Drew. 4 years, $85 million for a guy who is not bad in Harrison Barnes, but you're not winning a championship with Harrison Barnes either. This is the Sacramento Kings saying, we want to be relevant, man. We just want to taste the playoffs. We thought we had it this year. I don't know, Drew. I look at this setup, man. This is a bad move for me because if you're not trying to win, what are you doing? And that's what I see here. I get it. You got to sell tickets. You got to be competitive, but
that's what it is.
It's, to me, you're signing one of these guys that's not getting you anywhere. Harrison Barnes is not getting you anywhere. I get it. He was on Golden State. They won championships when he was there, and he was a role player. He was a good player, even more than a role player. He was a good player for them when they needed him to be, but it's just not happening. I mean, the Kings have just kind of assigned themselves to mediocrity here. I would be telling Kawhi, we're in California too, man. Come on! You want to be in charge of a team? Here's your chance. They're not on his radar, but no. I don't know. I guess you take what you can get if you're a Sacramento Kings fan.
No doubt about it. Brian says got to get the ball out of LeBron's hands to be successful.
I think LeBron shares. I think we're sleeping on how well LeBron shares, especially with other superstars. I think AD's going to have enough chances. I think shooters are even going to have even more chances.
He is 10th all time on assists for a person that is claiming that they need to get the ball out of his hand, man. Top 10 on assists. I mean, that's huge, man.
And maybe it needs to leave his hands more now that he's older. So maybe you do have a point. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think what it is it's, to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think he should be bringing the ball down the court. And I think that's one of his biggest things is he needs to take away. Man, your size is what you got now. Your jump shot's what you need to work on. Quit trying to act like you are Magic Johnson.
You're not a point guard, right?
Yeah,
you're not the point guard. Let the point guard be the point guard.
Exactly.
You go lean into somebody because you're more physical than still, even at 35, 36 years old. You're more physical than a lot of guys in the NBA. Lean into them. We'll pass to you, and then you go sit there and drive it in.
Right.
It's an interesting question. Good to see you, Sean. Also, Brian says Jimmy shot down a 5-year offer from Philly. I agree, but it's all in the cell. It's all in the cell. They should have sold Jimmy Butler like, look, man, we were this close, and we were this close because you were here. That would be my entire point. I get it. His attitude isn't the same as everyone else, but I think he's a guy who just wants to win. He came up short, but my selling point would be we were one good shot away. We were one good hand in Kawhi's face away from playing the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, who went on to beat Golden State, who, let's face it, Jimmy, aren't going to be good this year too. I would even offer him a shorter deal if he wanted it. I would offer him to say, okay, you're not sold on us. Play for 2 more years, and we'll even give you a player option after 1. We'll max you out on that 2-year deal, and then you can leave if you decide the team's not going where it is. Losing a shooter like this, when you have the big men like Embiid, now Al Horford, who can shoot a little bit, but he's still a big man, and you also have Ben Simmons, who's got to play inside, I think to me is a terrible blow for the Sixers.
Yeah. Cody said it's all about the pressure, not the sharing. Let him relax and not have to make every play. And Brian goes, that's why no point guard wants to play with LeBron.
Yeah, I agree, because you're the point guard. There's some ego to that, right? Like, I run it, the offense runs through me. Even if I'm not scoring. Even Ricky Rubio says the offense runs through me because I decide who scores. I'm the guy who finds that dime and dishes the ball to him. You're absolutely right. You are 100% right. And I think that's why a lot of point guards, let's face it, they're not getting one this year. Unless they trade for D'Angelo Russell, they're not going to go get a point guard. I don't see the guy out there that they're going to go add and is going to be
Rondo.
the guy carrying it down now. Exactly. You don't want Rondo being the guy setting everything up.
I mean, that's the only... I don't know. I'd have to sit there and really honestly look at it, but it's not extremely exciting after all these big names going away. That's why I was sitting there saying the Redick and the Rose signing, like, man, those are players that they could have brought in that might be willing to sit there and take a backseat to LeBron bringing down the ball. Also,
Cody, when you say let him relax and not have to make every play, well, part of it's on him. Part of it is him having the ego of saying, I'm the team I'm the guy that everything runs through on this team. I think part of it, too, is LeBron at any point could say, you carry the ball down the court and I'll just go set up. He hasn't done that. He still wants it to be about him like he's 28 instead of 35. I think you need to have, again, I go back to humility, that one thing nobody seems to have in the NBA, but I think he needs to accept his new role of, it's okay for me not to have the ball in my hands every time we cross the center line. And that, to me, is the biggest point.
What's going on, Sean? Thank you. I am back from my anniversary, and Jake did do a good job. I thought he was big enough to take over the reins, so I decided to let him go on his own.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that.
Welcome. You're welcome, guy.
Let me drive the car, too.
You're welcome, pal, buddy, son.
Also, Brian says, just like Paul with Harden. I think I think the ball needs to come out of James Harden's hands a little bit, and I think James Harden might even put up better numbers. I don't know if it's the exact same thing, but I think you're on the right path, Brian. Also, Cody says that's the difference between LeBron and MJ. We don't have time for that. Let's keep talking about keep talking about some of these other guys.
Let's keep going.
Valanciunas back to the Grizzlies. Who cares? Honestly, Ja Morant now has a weapon of some kind. I mean, a halfway decent player with Valanciunas.
An average player.
Slightly above. I'll give him slightly above, but you're right. Not too far.
Would it succeed like that on a team like the Lakers or the Warriors, or a team that's a little bit higher than?
He was good. He was good in Toronto for a little while. Not great, but he was
average.
Good. He was good. He's not average. All right, and then also Bogdanovich on his way to the Jazz here, sign and trade deal from the Bucks. They had to free up some space. I like the Jazz are getting better every day, Drew.
I like this signing.
They're getting better every day, man.
I like
Conley, I was like, I like that. I could get down with that. And then they bring in Bogdanovich as well. This is going to be the platoon. The question is going to be, can you play team basketball and beat superstars?
They're going to have a solid 5.
They're all in on it. They are all in on we can use the platoon to beat superstars.
And the question is what do they got coming off the bench? That's the issue.
Yeah.
They got a solid 5. They really do. Problem is there's injuries, there's foul trouble, and there's exhaustion. You have to have a bench.
They play great defense. They play great defense.
I agree with you.
And now they can shoot a little bit. I mean, Conley shoots a little bit, and now they have Bogdanovich as well. They can shoot. Drew,
I like it.
Drew, they're adding shooters to a good defense. That's what I love in the NBA. They're getting better, man. Every day.
It's a great signing.
Every day. They're not winning, but they're getting better.
I'd love to see the Utah Jazz get back to,
maybe it's round 2 or round 3 this time. They're getting better, but they're not quite there yet. I absolutely believe the Jazz are getting better. I love this move as well. Yeah, it's a lot of money. 4 years, 73 is a lot to give a guy like Bogdanovich. But, Drew, you do it. You just do it. You just get better. Especially in this year where the Warriors probably won't be the powerhouse. Moving forward, we'll talk about Porzingis re-signing with the Mavericks. Thank God, because I know they didn't want to trade all those assets away. Do not get anything and have him walk and go somewhere else in free agency. They're going to have like the most European roster ever with him and Luka Doncic. But I know the deal fell through for Goran Dragic from the Heat, unfortunately, because otherwise it would have been like Team Europe versus America. I would have loved to see that. Still a good signing. Still a good move. I think this is absolutely fantastic. You traded away for Porzingis. Now you locked him up.
So
mission accomplished.
So my question is, where do you see the Dallas Mavericks ending at the end of the year, do you see him in the playoffs? And if you
Yeah,
see him in the playoffs,
fringe.
where do you see them in seedings?
7, 6, somewhere around there. I like Porzingis. I like Doncic. I think Doncic is going to need a little bit more seasoning before they're ready to actually challenge for the NBA. But maybe this is that team that, unlike the Spurs, go in there and upset a team like the Nuggets. They go upset a 2 or a 3 seed and get into the second round, and we're like, man, this team's got promise. This is how it starts. You got your 2 stars now. You got Doncic. You got Porzingis. Add a few other guys to fill in the gaps. I think the Mavs are going to be a good team.
Yeah,
next year and beyond.
I think that this is the right move for the future of the organization. Do I think next year I see them in the playoffs? It's really hard to tell, man. I mean, we saw teams like the Clippers get in there in an 8 seed and do well. I just don't know if from those guys to everyone behind them is enough to sit there and put the Mavericks into that category. But let's not forget, the West is the toughest conference.
I agree.
Out of the 2, for sure,
agree.
Hands down.
Plus, Porzingis could get hurt again. I mean,
right.
that's also the case. But I think when you trade away for a superstar, especially with the way this roster looked before Luka started looking good, this is what had to happen, and it's what needs to happen out there in LA too. Because Anthony Davis is in a similar situation where you could have given all that up,
right?
And he can sit there and flip you the bird and say, "I'm going somewhere else next year."
Brian says he sees him at a 7th or an 8th seed.
I'm close to that. I didn't want to say 8th. I think they're better than an 8th.
I honestly don't think they're going to make it.
You think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be another
short.
Year. Another year. I think they need more depth around them.
Potentially, but I think if those guys stay healthy,
it's
still
chance.
basketball. It's still basketball. Get somewhere around 500, you'll find your way in. Ricky Rubio on his way to Phoenix. Who cares? 3 years, $51 million. Phoenix. You got a guy. I like Ricky Rubio. I really do. He's a good distributor.
Got a lot of hype.
He's going to pass the ball to Devin Booker. He's going to shoot a lot of shots.
He had a lot of hype around him coming in from the Europe League over to the NBA. Everyone was kind of like, this might be the next kind of like Pistol Pete or Magic Johnson in the sense of his distributing. But has he really lived up to that hype to you? Has he? Anywhere close to
Rubio? No, but he's a good distributor. This is a guy I'd rather have than not have. I'd especially love it if he's one of those guys that's coming off the bench for me. But, again, $51 million is not a bench player make. This is what you have to do with your Phoenix, right? I mean, if you're Phoenix and you're the Suns and you've been this terrible for this long, it's time to bring in any name I can and maybe get a little bit better. Like I said, he'll pass the ball to Devin Booker a lot, and Devin Booker will take a lot of shots, score a lot of points, and then you'll still lose by 25 because you can't play any defense. I think Phoenix made a move that makes the team better, but not substantially so. This isn't the same as the Mavericks bringing back Porzingis, where they're going to be maybe a playoff team or at least have the potential.
Right.
Phoenix doesn't do anything with this move. Moving forward, we'll talk about Tobias Harris here. I think this is a good signing by the 76ers, bringing him back in. 5 years, $180 million. You lost Jimmy Butler. You had to bring Tobias Harris back. You traded for him last year from the Clippers. I like this move.
Right.
It's a lot of money. You're betting on Harris a lot, but do it. Like I said, they're in the end game now. It's win or go home. So I'm okay with that. Julius Randle to the Knicks. And that's their free agency. Terrible, Drew. Terrible.
It doesn't fix anything.
No, it doesn't make things worse. But you're not winning with Julius Randle. I know he had a good deal last year, but let's not forget this guy's been a perennial disappointment. Or not living up to the talent, whatever you want to call it.
Correct.
Julius Randle to the Knicks is going to be more of a challenge. I really do believe that. Going forward here, Taj Gibson, also on the Knicks. Water under the bridge.
Yeah.
Does he help a lot?
I mean, he's going to fill a roster spot.
$20 million filling a roster spot?
Yeah. Because you're going to lose him to somewhere else.
Okay.
I mean, right? Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose him. He's going to go play somewhere else, and then you're still going to win 13 games next year.
You got to put someone in the position to play this. You got to start developing players around R.J. Barrett because he, at this point in time, is the future of your organization, and you can't just put him out there with nobody. You can't do it. You got to get something.
At least it's only 2 years. That's the best thing I can say. Knicks fans, by next year, you're going to be like, man, why do we sign this guy? Even though I think Taj Gibson was a good player, it's time to move on. Don't love that move. But then again, when do I ever love anything the Knicks do? Moving forward. We already talked about Jimmy Butler on his move to the Heat. Again, Houston should have snapped this guy up. I'm kind of confused why they didn't. They could have been the best shooting team in the NBA, even outpacing Golden State with one half of the Splash Brothers out. Al Horford on his way. We talked about that. Also, D'Angelo Russell to the Warriors. If he sticks, do you see him playing as a 1-2-3 scenario with them, I'm worried about it. I don't think him and Curry as the 1 and 2 is a good defense or a good unit to even put out there. Yeah, maybe you score a lot of points, but you're not stopping anybody.
No, but I think if you were going to pick one point guard out of the whole NBA and move him to a number 2 point, that's Curry.
Yeah, well, he shoots. Do you want him guarding some shooting guards?
Maybe that's D'Angelo that has to do that.
Yeah, I get you. It's
the offense is totally different when it goes to their side of the court.
I'd love to see the sign and trade. I would. If they can wrangle up some kind of, not even superstar, but another guy that can make that next level of worth of contribution. If this could be a Jimmy Butler coming in or somebody else that can take a game over and make an impact. I just don't believe in D'Angelo Russell. I do believe in Russell Wilson. That's what I wanted to say. I don't believe in D'Angelo Russell. I think that's going to be their biggest issue. Andre Iguodala on his way out. Is this a betrayal or is this just business, Drew? Obviously, they traded him to the Grizzlies, who were expected to cut him, and then he'll sign with another contender. I've heard Spurs. I've heard even people like the Nuggets
Lakers.
looking. I've heard Nuggets too. Lakers. Is it a betrayal for a guy who's been an important part of a lot of these championship teams? Remember, Drew, this is the guy who shut down LeBron.
No, you're right. Is it betrayal or is it business? I mean, it's a good possibility he goes back to the Warriors.
They sign and trade him and then pick him up on a cheap deal.
I mean, why not?
Thanks, Grizzlies.
I mean, it's happened before.
Why not? Because Iguodala is going to be a little sour about being traded, but I don't think he's that guy. I think he's the team player.
Just wants to win championships,
And he likes
man.
Steph Curry.
He
if
was
you
a
listen to all his
starter.
interviews.
He was a starter and a star at one point in time in the NBA. If you remember his time back in the 76ers when they let Allen Iverson go, he's the one that took over that franchise. It's a possibility that he's willing to just, hey, it's business. I'm here to win championships. I know you need my defense when it comes to guarding players in the West like Harden and James and so on and so on. Hey, I'm willing to come back.
Let me talk about a move I do like. Jamal Murray signing a contract extension with the Nuggets. They did a good job of keeping their young star under contract. 5 years, $170 million. Sounds like a lot, but when you think about the way the cap is going to move up, this is okay. 3 or 4 years from now, especially towards the end of this contract, you're going to be saying, man, we got a deal on an up-and-comer as long as he continues that progression upwards. You're always scared of that, but when you're a young team like the Nuggets, this is the best move. Lock him up now.
The way this young guy played in the playoffs, he deserved every bit of this money. I think even though Djokovic is definitely kind of the future face of the organization, someone like Murray's right next to him, you had to sign this guy up. I'm 100% agreement with you. This is the right move, and it's exactly what should have done.
And Sean says, welcome back. I'm glad you're back, too. It's always nice having another person in studio to talk with. So thank you for coming back, Drew. I appreciate that. And thank you, Sean.
Your friend stood in well.
Hassan Whiteside, on his way via trade to the Blazers. I know they just offered that new contract to Damian Lillard here, Drew. Is it enough? Is Hassan Whiteside the guy that pushes them over the edge? Because I do like the move. I do like Whiteside. He's not a dominator per se. He's a great player, but not exactly elite. And then Damian Lillard, to me, is in the same kind of light. Great player, maybe even a Hall of Famer eventually. And Lillard, is he enough to win?
No. I think I don't know if it pushes them over the edge. I don't know, man. I hate to sit there and say this because I'm a Nuggets fan, but they got so lucky they faced the Nuggets before they faced the Warriors.
And that might not be the case next year.
And that's exactly what I'm getting at, because they might not get that kind of setup going into the playoffs next year. I'm not saying that Lillard didn't deserve all the credit that he got to, but that guy's been doing that for years. That's why they gave him this contract. But does someone like Whiteside add that much more to this team? I don't know if I can sit there and say yes.
I like the addition of the big man, especially when we're seeing some of these teams stack up on big men. I think we might even see a little bit of a culture change in the NBA where maybe we're not all shooting three-pointers all the time, 24/7. So I do like Whiteside going in there. My question is going to be, does Lillard and Whiteside beat a team like Curry and Draymond? Does Lillard and Whiteside beat Davis and James? This is, just like I complained about with Sacramento, this is you paying guys who are very, very good, and you'll win games, and you'll go to the playoffs, and then you get there and you face a buzzsaw, and everyone writes you off. And you win a game or two, and these guys get paid, and everything else, and then... Next thing you know, you still haven't won a championship.
Right.
And these guys retire. And the window is closed. That, to me, is what these deals kind of look like. I like the Blazers trying. I would have liked them to try a little harder.
I agree.
Is my only point. I would like them to try to go out and land. someone like a Kawhi. Free up the space. Go get Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Go get Kevin Durant. Go get Kyrie Irving. Go get somebody you can lean on and say, we legitimately have a superstar on this team to play with Damian Lillard.
Correct.
And maybe go get a win. I like CJ McCollum, but he's not a superstar. They're just like that second tier in the NBA that aren't quite good enough.
Yeah.
Try it again.
It went dead.
All right, and we're back. I guess we're going to have a part 2 here. Before we round out, and we appreciate you guys coming back. Sorry about that. I'm not 100% sure why Facebook cut us out like that, but really quick, Drew, I want to go through some winners and losers for free agency here. Or you can almost call it the entire NBA offseason.
Yeah.
When I look at this, I'll go through my list here, and you can tell me if you agree or not. I want to talk about some losers. To me, the team that lost the most, New York Knicks, to be, right? When you look at the way all of these teams...
They lost Zion. I mean, that's the very first person we should look at is the fact they lost Zion. I mean, not getting the lottery to fall on you, to having to pick at number 3, it's tough. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It says we're still going, man. Oh, no, we're not.
It was telling me no internet, too. So, all right, I guess we'll wrap it up.